Welcome to the eighth episode of the ELAN Healing seminar series podcast. As I continue my adventure this um, in this program, I'm more and more, getting clear about what I want to see happen with it, and I just really want to share my 25, 30 years of my exploration into human consciousness, health, and how to get the absolute most out of life in all of the dimensions, spiritually, mentally, physically, money, family, career, social, and emotional. And it it kind of feels like a bit of a daunting task because there's so much material to go through, but then at the same time, I'm so excited that I have, years of material to share. And so um, I've been talking recently over the last, let's say, two um, podcasts about main structures, main philosophies of how to transition the life from the ordinary to the extraordinary, and maybe extend it into the magical a little bit. And that 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 idea of educated intelligence being the dominant intelligence for a person's life, it's toxic and it's dangerous. It's completely a useful ally, but that body wisdom, that's a deep well, and there's a spiritual conversation for somebody to have with themselves of what is that inner voice, what is your star player when it speaks to you, when your body's wisdom, is speaking to you. Whose voice is that? Is that your soul? Is that is that God? These are interesting things to explore, but it does seem to be a fair bit more wise than the educated intelligence. And so, as real foundations are laid down inside of this conversation, and one of the things that I know I'll attract is a lot of people misunderstanding where it is that I'm coming from, because they won't watch things in their entirety. Like, who would? That would, that'd be a lot. Um, and so, I guess I'm just gonna have to deal with that as that comes. But the 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 data set and the lifestyle that I'm recommending, um, it's not, I don't come at it from a light place. It's like there's a deep well of uh, scientific understanding, spiritual understanding, um, clinical practice of just watching people, and so it's just a continuous investigation and invitation. It's an investigation on my side to just do what my body wisdom tells me to do the best that I can, and an invitation to everybody to follow in the direction. And this is one of the forefathers. This picture here is of Daniel David Palmer, and he wrote a book in 19. It's called 1910. I don't know exactly what year it was published, but this guy's the father of chiropractic. He's the one who kind of was. He's the one that like kind of downloaded the spiritual information of what chiropractic can be. My understanding is that he was living up in Canada, and he was a magnetic healer. I've never really understood what a magnetic healer is. I don't think that he was like running magnets over people's bodies, but I think he was doing something about nerve tracing, and I think that he was paying attention to the various frequencies or tones that you can feel off of a person, or when you lightly touch people's skin, you can get a sense of the vibration coming off of them, off of their physical body, or up in their organizational fields, in the fields that make up their body. And he was, to my understanding, and when I was teaching chiropractic relicensing seminars, um, I had this corroborated by a number of old-time chiropractors that this man had been a medium in the spiritual realm, and he had been in communication with a person, more of a medical doctor, who had passed away in the middle 1850s, and this would have been in the year approximating 1895, that in this communication in the spiritual realm, he had heard this entity say that you can alter consciousness, or you can affect the union between spirit and physical by adjusting the spine. Now, all of that terminology isn't exact, because these things get passed down from chiropractor to chiropractor, and the words are a little bit maybe not quite accurate. So if anybody that knows more about that, you could drop that in the comments. But my understanding is that it's a true statement that he derived the idea of being able to adjust the bones of the spine to affect the quality of communication between spirit and physical from as a medium, that he had picked that up. And so these are some of the things that I invite people to not just blatantly disregard as silly or ridiculous. I feel a little bit awkward even talking about it, because that'll just shut down so many people. They're just like, that's totally crazy. Like, how ridiculous would that be? But I think, in biblical times, I think it was Peter, and I am definitely no expert on the Bible, but I believe it was Peter that had a dream, and he traveled hundreds and hundreds of miles because of a dream, to follow this mission. And I'll typically allude to these kinds of things, and even if I don't have the data set exactly right, it's what one can derive from the data set that matters the most. The specifics don't matter so much to me. They're important, but they're not as important as the possibility of life being more mysterious than we make it up to be, and that we're culturalized for it to be. If there's something happening that is very mystical and spiritual, and that we're being guided by something, whether it's our deeper self, our soul, God, whatever that is, I don't think that really matters. But it makes the story more intriguing. It makes the movie that you're the central character in, it makes it more intriguing. It makes it more mysterious. It makes it, it adds a lot of levity and possibilities and mystery. And humans can engage inside of that mystery, and it brings a quality that that by and large I've found people to really enjoy, because the exclusively analytical facts material is just the material, and there is no need for spirit, there is no need for meaningful serendipity. That might be the way reality actually is, but I would just suggest that it's less enjoyable of a ride. And remember, the ride that you're on is about the story that you're making up about the ride that you're on. And so I just invite you to create a story that is really good. And um, and so, just from a philosophical standpoint, it's like, does your story work for you? Is it okay for you to make up a little bit of a different story about what your childhood was like if your childhood was not so good? Can you tweak the story to rehearse that story that it's plausible, right? I think I was saying in the second or third podcast, it's like maybe you had a terrible stepmother, and maybe the story that you make up, rather than rehearsing that you had a terrible stepmother and your life is bad and you've got problems because you had a bad stepmother, maybe the story that you make up is like, you know what? She did the best that she could, and I'm going to do the best I can with what's left over from that. You're not absolving her of responsibility, but maybe she just didn't have the skills. And can you see how that could really serve you as an individual? And so when I talk about making up a story, you are making up a story about basically everything that's going on inside of your life. And the context in which you view this, it makes a difference in how you live and what your days are like. And so be conscious of the stories that you make up, and why don't you conspire to make up a plausible story, right? The story needs to be good, and that serves you, you know and so I invite people to, you know immerse themselves in a little bit of a mystery and be conscious of the stories that you rehearse, because they're not accurate. Even if you're trying to make them completely accurate, this is what happened. It's like, well, from your perspective, that's what happened. But, you know, 5 people observe a car crash and they will all say that a little bit of nuance, a little bit of different things happened. Your perspective, if you're the driver, is different than if you're the passenger. If you're the pedestrian that got hit, that was having a bad day, your perspective about the situation's different. And, the police officer taking the report gets 5 different interpretations of what happened. And, so be careful about the stories that you make up, because they get imprinted into you, and then that, my gosh, it affects your psychology, it affects how your immune system functions, how your endocrine system functions, how you feel about yourself, how you carry yourself through the day, right? So these things, they matter a lot. And so I got going down that rabbit hole a little bit because of this man, D.D. Palmer. He's considered to be the father of chiropractic. And, there's a lot of complication with the profession of chiropractic. Is it about uniting man the physical with man the spiritual? Or is it for musculoskeletal rehabilitation insurance billing? Or is it somewhere in between? And I always took chiropractic from the standpoint that chiropractic is about uniting man the physical with man the spiritual. I like that better. That's just a more fun way to create a profession. It's a more fun way to interact with people. And the musculoskeletal rehabilitation model of kind of being a physical therapist, orthopedic medical provider, that's really nice too, because insurance actually pays for that, and people with musculoskeletal injuries certainly deserve to be helped and that kind of stuff. But it's more fascinating to me, it's more fascinating for my wife, for us to really engage with people and invite them into a domain about their personal best, and then help them move in that direction and help them discover more about the deepness of them, that they're like, Western medicine would have us believe that if you have no symptoms, you have no problems, no diseases, then what's left over is ideal, right? But that's not true at all. It's like there's so much growth. If you have no symptoms, no disease, no it to point at, how do you intervene with a person? How do you take that which is good and like make that better, right? I believe that that's what the practice of chiropractic is, but because it doesn't really seem like chiropractic really wants that model. I think that very few practicing chiropractors practice in the model of uniting man, the physical with spiritual. I've gone to, I went to chiropractic college for years, and they talk about these concepts a bit. At the school I went to, Life West, they talk about it a bit, but it is really about insurance billing and musculoskeletal rehabilitation and fixing and repairing people's problems. And the vast majority of chiropractors that I've met, they think that this stuff that I'm talking about having its roots in chiropractic is, just a bunch of hooey. It's just historical stuff. There was a young woman at the last chiropractic seminar that I was forced to go to it. I don't want to go to these things. I just have to do it to keep my license. She stood up and she's just like, I think we should abolish the word subluxation, and that word, it has deep meaning. I'm not going to go into it right now, for the entire profession of chiropractic. And so chiropractic is being absorbed by Western medicine, as far as I'm concerned. And just like the osteopaths, the osteopaths used to believe, maybe they still do, 3 or 4% of them, that the delivery of blood to the various organs, muscles, tissues, glands of the body is what brings vibrant health to the individual. Chiropractors were saying, no, it's neurological flow. It's like the nervous system is the central organizing structure of the human body, and its nerve supply to the organs, tissues, and glands that reorganize the body and maintain health and create vitality and reverse disease and these kinds of things. So they had a different opinion. One was like about delivery of blood. You can make a strong argument for that. That's great philosophy, right? But in the 50s, my understanding is that the osteopaths were invited to, come and be trained at the medical schools, and, but just give up the philosophy, stop talking about blood supply to organs. And, you can come and be trained in our facilities. You can still be an osteopath, but just stop talking about the delivery of blood and optimizing health through the manipulation of organs, tissues, and glands for, optimizing the person. Well, they did that in the 50s. And so where are the osteopaths now? They're in this nowhere zone that most people don't even know that the profession really even exists. I believe that chiropractic is moving in that direction. Matter of fact, my president at the chiropractic college warned me of this in the mid 90s. He's like, you guys have about 10 years to save the profession, because it's being absorbed by Western medicine and their grants, their research projects. And, and so it gets really complicated from just a structural political standpoint. And so that's why I'm kind of in this battle all the time of whether to even keep my license. I really define myself more as a healing facilitator. And, my wife and I, we train other healing facilitators. And when I talk with other people in culture, I talk about being a healing facilitator, because that actually opens up, a deeper, more fun conversation that I would prefer to have with somebody. It's like, if I have an opportunity to invite somebody like deeper into their own storyline, that's what I personally want to do. It's like, when I first meet somebody and they might come in, because they have like a hip problem that they want to work through. I love the questions like, well, why do you think your body hasn't moved through this? And that invites them to go to their upper mental field and come down with novel insight about how they are not, um, doing what they know they need to do for themselves. And if we can start having the conversation gently about them not moving forward the way that they know they need to move forward, like if we can make that transition from they're trying to hire me to fix their problem so that they can stay the same, right? That's what's generally happening in healthcare, is people want to be moved backwards to who they used to be before the onset of their problem. But if you have the right language model and the right philosophy, you can invite somebody to participate deeper with themselves and the story that they're living inside of. So you ask a question of, well, why do you think your body hasn't moved through this already? They'll come back with the most interesting answers. It's like from it could just be something like, well, I just know that I need to stretch and I'm not stretching enough. Or, I'm always frustrated about this situation. I've got all of these problems. And they seemingly don't have anything to do with their hip. They have to do with the individual. And so it's a beautiful thing as a healing facilitator to take a person right from the beginning and be on their side, right? It's like, I'm not trying to take something away from you. I'm trying to give you something new. I'm trying to teach you something new. I'm trying to help you develop skills to become more of the human being that you would love to be. And, so plenty of people are like, not interested in that. And so then they don't stay in care. But, there's a lot of people that are like, very fascinated with becoming more clear internally and having, being stronger, having more integrity with themselves, having better structure to be able to feel that alignment, be more in alignment, be more congruent, and step forward into the life that they would love to have. And there's a relationship. There's a relationship between a person being in alignment, being congruent, having integrity, and moving forward with what they need to do in their life, and the expression of disease. Now, unfortunately, this stuff isn't studied on the macro scale. To my knowledge, there are no, multi-million-dollar grants to follow people that are becoming more clear and following through with the life that they would love to have, and their movement forward, and track the probability of them reversing disease or preventing disease. These are studies. I don't even know how somebody would be able to study this. But after decades of watching people and who has disease, who doesn't have disease, who moves through disease, it's an interesting thing. And so all of this conversation about the mysteries of life, listening to your inner knowing, your body wisdom, listening to your star player, all of this stuff for me comes from some of the deep roots of chiropractic, which I actually think has been lost from the profession. And so it starts with this guy, D.D. Palmer, who was a spiritual medium. He was a magnetic healer, whatever that is. But he had an insight, communication with a physician who had passed away 40 years previous, that had told him that you can assist in the unification between spirit and matter by interacting with the spine. And on page 542 of his book, 1910, he states, in the early years of chiropractic, I used the term innate, meaning innate intelligence, innate as spirit, innate intelligence as spiritual intellect, universal intelligence as another word for God, because they were more comprehensive and the world was not prepared to receive the latter terms mentioned. Now, I don't know if that's just a justification for making up words more complicated, but we have indicators from this gentleman, right? So they were talking about this word chiropractic. I was alluding to this young chiropractor a couple months ago at a relicensing seminar that wants to get rid of the word subluxation. Well, classically in chiropractic, the the idea of chiropractic, of like why I went to chiropractic college, was that the body's a self-healing organism. The nervous system controls and coordinates the activities of the body, and that when bones go out of place, that's called a subluxation. So when a bone in the spine goes out of place, it's going to impinge on the area of a nerve, which does not allow the body, the neurological system of the body, to function at optimum capacity. And so the only thing that chiropractors do is put a force into the body to remove the subluxation. So the subluxation is the bone out of place interfering on the nerve supply, that reduces the quality of information transfer from the brain to the end organ, and from the organ back to, or the muscle, back to the brain. And so the central concept of chiropractic is about the subluxation, and that chiropractors adjust the spine to remove the subluxations. Now, there's a ton of nuance that I'll get into over time, but it saddens me that the profession seems to need to go completely away from the central theme of what chiropractic was designed to be musculoskeletal rehabilitation specialists. And I think that a lot of it's driven by just finance. The schools charge a lot of money, and insurance pays for symptom and disease treatment. They don't really pay for optimizing the human nervous system and people becoming more clear and walking their path with greater and greater congruency and strength. And so the profession's very divided, and I bring a lot of this stuff up because the roots of where I'm coming from is inside of chiropractic, but I think that we've grown out of the box of chiropractic a long time ago. And so I'll be continuously talking about optimizing the human experience, inviting people deeper into the story that they can create for themselves, and optimizing, making things better. But I want people to know that it's like, I just feel that chiropractic is living very below its potential. I feel like it's being absorbed by Western medicine. That's sad. And myself and my colleagues, we are decentralizing healthcare. I've teamed up with lawyers. I've pulled everything that I understand out of chiropractic for almost 20 years now. I've been training healing facilitators because people are sick and tired of having their symptoms focused on. They care about them. Caring for the human being is as important as caring for the symptoms in the disease. People love to be found. People love to be ushered to the next state of their being. And there are technologies that I've learned that usher people across these chasms of challenges that they face. And they're not just physical disease symptom kind of chasms. They are, you know, strength of character. It runs all of these gamuts of listening to your inner knowing, being guided by your higher self, doing what you love to do, you know, getting paid well for it. You know, how do you give and love and serve and contribute and make a difference in how you want to do it? How do you optimize all of the different dimensions of life? So there's a ton of work that you can do with a person. You know, we have clients that have been coming for 25 years. We've been in practice for 25 years. We have practice members that are still in care right from the get-go. And, you know, so there's a lot of necessity to decentralize healthcare, to help people understand that there's a lot more to healthcare than in symptom and disease management, right? There's Western medicine, and then there's all the alternatives, but they're all going to the same destination. They're all just trying to fix you, and they all have a different story about how they're going to fix you and how they're going to do the diagnosis. But there's an entire other domain, and it's all about a person's inner journey of discovery and giving people new skill sets for them to live in the modern world and to grow as a human being. And so this is where our focus is, and I've got a nice team of people that I've surrounded myself with that are willing to learn and commit to, you know, not only being the change that they want to see in the world, but then passing that change on to other people. And so we're decentralizing healthcare, and we're adding value inside of the healthcare arena, and we're certainly telling a different story. And I just really wanted to communicate that it has its origins inside of chiropractic. But I mean, my wife and I, we're both licensed chiropractors, but the people that we train, they're not chiropractors. They are, so we've been able to massively reduce the costs, but we've been able to increase the effectiveness because, well, for a lot of reasons. I don't need to go into that right now. But I wanted to impress upon people that the origins come from this man, Dee Palmer. I think that Dee Palmer would be very proud of what it is that we are and what ELAN stands for. And so that's a bit of that. Dee Palmer would say that, so we talked a little bit about the mechanistic line of thinking and the vitalistic line of thinking. And inside of vitalism, it kind of goes top down philosophically. And the reductionist, the mechanistic model basically goes from bottom to top. And I went through that, you know, maybe in the second or third podcast. So I won't deep dive into it now. But in vitalism, it's top down. And the problem with going top down is that if there is a mistake in the philosophy, that then the derivatives of that logic have the tendency to, you can draw mistakes from it. And so there are some of these major principles inside of vitalism that can be explored and that have value. And I encourage people to think about these things, because I would say that a person's philosophy is the second most important foundation for a person's life and constructing the extraordinary life experience. The primary thing is your body wisdom of being connected to yourself and knowing yourself and listening to that body wisdom, listening to that inner voice with clarity, with amplitude. I believe that's the foundation for constructing the extraordinary life experience, the magical life experience. And on top of that would be your philosophy. And philosophy, as far as I'm concerned, it needs to be scrutinized, because if you find holes in it, then you won't have as solid of ground to stand on. And so that's why I have this slide here. The first principle of chiropractic is that there's a universal intelligence in all matter and continually gives to it all of its properties and actions, thus maintaining it in existence. And so this idea, you can tell how it has connotations of God to it, right? And so inside of this statement, I invite people to tear it apart and see if it's real or if it's not real. And the way that I wrestled with this for quite a while, for years, probably, maybe a year and a half or so from when I first heard it, because it just sounded too much like God to me. And I think that's pretty much what Didi just said that he was talking about. And the thing is that a guy named Reggie Gold explained it to me, and anybody out there that knows who Reggie Gold is, kudos to you. Great guy. We were playing racquetball one time, and I asked him this question that I didn't really understand. I couldn't wrap my head philosophically around the concept that there's a universal intelligence in all matter and continuously gives all of its properties and actions, therefore maintaining it in existence. And he's like, well, it's really simple. He's like, can you have organization without intelligence? And I, at first, I didn't have a quick answer to that because I'd never heard the question before. And I thought about it. It's like, no, I don't think so. And he's like, well, imagine that you want to have a party at your house. Is it just going to spontaneously organize itself? Or are you going to have to make some phone calls and send out some messages to get everybody in the same place at the same time? And I'm like, yeah, okay. And he's like, that's all universal intelligence is. It's just an organizing intelligence. And we know that there's intelligence because everything is organized. He's like, you can't have intelligence. You can't have organization without intelligence. So that's all that Didi Palmer means by that there's a universal intelligence in all things, because it shows the property of organization. And that made a really big difference to me personally, because I believe that that's true, And so however you tear apart the organization of atomic structures, subatomic structures, macro structures, planets, universes, whatever, they all show an organization. And it's that organizing field that we're talking about, what universal intelligence is. And so, so that was a big step for me. And maybe that's helpful for other individuals. It's so foundational, because from there we can kind of spring forward into, tearing things down a little bit more, that if there's a universal intelligence, maybe there's a subset of universal intelligence. We're going to call that innate intelligence. Innate intelligence is that which is in animate objects, living objects, that does not exist inside of inanimate objects. So a rock has universal intelligence, but not innate intelligence. Innate intelligence is just that intelligence that fights entropy. A rock has no ability to fight entropy, right? A rock is destined to degrade and turn into sand over however many millions or thousands of years, depending on forces acted upon it, right? Entropy is the breakdown, but innate intelligence is the subset of intelligence, of universal intelligence, that animates living things, that fights entropy, right? Your body is not just destined, you're a clump of cells, you grow into a 1-year-old and then you just degrade. No, there's an intelligence inside of your body that utilizes its forces, its intelligence to be able to fight the entropy. You have cells that are breaking down, you need to grow. And so you're actually a growth organism, just like a blade of grass is a growth living organism. It has innate intelligence, just like the worm in the tree, right? But not the cloud. The cloud is only going, the cloud is just going to be, subject to universal forces. And so, so the subset of universal intelligence that we call innate intelligence, it lives in all living things. The thing is that we have an inborn intelligence. We humans have an innate intelligence that organizes, that it's the intelligence that is the organizing thing that fights the entropy. Innate intelligence is going to exist, the energy of it is going to exist through the nervous system. The nervous system is the main contributor to reorganization, repair, regeneration, all of these things of the human body. It's just the coordinating element. I'm not saying that it's the controlling mechanism. I used to believe it was the controlling mechanism. It's not. It's the coordination system, because all the other systems are so insanely important also. And so the thing is that our innate intelligence, it's the part of us that is what is fighting the entropy. And there are no schools, there's no classes, books, pills, there are no internet programs, there's nothing that a person's going to do to increase their innate intelligence. So we were talking yesterday about educated intelligence and body wisdom, these different intelligence. One, so body wisdom is the words that are being said from inside of you, right? That you can hear. You're having a conversation, hopefully, with your body's wisdom. Some people are just having a conversation inside of their head and they're not connected to their body wisdom. It's just educated argument, right? Educated intelligence and body wisdom. I think that a lot of chiropractors make a mistake and they say that they listen to their innate intelligence. I don't think that you listen to your innate intelligence. I don't think it speaks in words. I think that body wisdom is the verbal component of it. The innate intelligence is just what your innate intelligence is. It's going to give 100% of its efforts all the time to fighting the entropy that exists. And so you're not going to increase the amount of intelligence that your innate has. It's just that which is given to you. You can reduce its effectiveness by having bound energy in different parts of the body. Some chiropractors would call those subluxations, that a bone out of place on a nerve is inhibiting the innate intelligence from expressing its intelligence 100%. Okay, I get that. I'm going to refine that a little bit and just say that you have some defended physiology, because maybe it's a muscle, maybe it's an organ that's in defense, maybe it's the spine that's in defense, maybe it's the dura around the spinal cord that's in defense, maybe it's a group of subsystems that are all in defense together, right? And so when a person has defense in their system, then the expression of the innate intelligence isn't 100%, but the innate intelligence is doing everything that it's attempting to do. It's working the best that it can, and it will work. It will be able to be expressed with greater clarity if you learn how to couple bound energy and free energy. It's like, how is it that you can dissipate the bound energy and develop more clarity internally? Things are going to work better, both from a macro, structural side of things, but also on an energetic side of things. You'll have greater clarity internally. innate intelligence is expressed more towards 100%. Your body is able to reorganize and repair to a better degree. And simultaneously, you get the benefit of turning up the volume of body wisdom. You hear the voice more. There's more clarity inside of the voice. You know that you know with a greater certainty. The more certainty you have coming from body wisdom, the better. So now we've now introduced a third intelligence into the human being. We'll get to 5 of them. And so we've got educated intelligence, incredibly important intelligence for your life. We've got body wisdom. This is that inner voice. And we've got innate intelligence. And so that was kind of a deep dive into universal intelligence, innate intelligence, and seeing how we as healing facilitators differentiate innate intelligence and body wisdom. And I think it's a really big refinement into the philosophy, which has its roots back in the tradition of chiropractic. And so this is just an interesting side note. Back in 1907, 115 years ago, or whatever that is, 118 years ago, this guy McDougall, came up with he weighed people before and after they died, and the weight and the soul actually had a weight. And I think that's really a fascinating tidbit. So I'll leave y'all with that little tidbit for the day, and we will get moving along tomorrow at 9:30.